Let me say something that's a little uncomfortable. Most people are not overlooked at work because they don't do good work. They're overlooked because they don't know how to explain their work with evidence. And if you've ever struggled to answer questions like, so what impact have you really made? Or why do you deserve this promotion? Then this episode is for you. In my last episode, I showed you how to collect your receipts, and that would be your wins, your proof. Today, I'm going to show you how to actually use those receipts so that you can talk about your career wins with confidence using simple numbers like time saved, money saved, or even people impacted. By the end of this episode, you will know how to take one career win, turn it into a clear, confident statement about the value of your work. It's not bragging, it's not hype, it is just evidence. And this is the missing step between the working hard part and actually being recognized for it. So, like I mentioned in a previous episode, I actually introduced you to the concept of collecting your receipts. And if you haven't had a chance to look at that, I strongly recommend looking at that first and then coming back to this episode. You have the what is career receipts, and then you understand in this episode the application of using your career receipts. What that is, that's going to be, after you've done the good work. We're not talking about doing something, nude. We're not planning for something ahead. We're actually taking a moment to reflect backwards. So that's going to be the projects you've already done, the evidence of those projects, the wins that you've had, and what are the things that measure why it was a win in the first place. All of that is evidence of the good work you've already done. So the reason that you want to collect your receipts is because having them, number one, just having the receipts is not enough. I mean, that's the first step. That is the first mindset shift that I want you to have, is that you realize that you are supposed to be keeping score. You are the one that's supposed to be basically tallying your wins as you go through them. But that is the first step. And then once you keep that going and you have that momentary reflection after every career win, it is going to build confidence. And that confidence needs to come across when you're communicating in high stakes conversations. So we talked about having something in your pocket, the measurements, using your leverage to be able to talk yourself through those conversations about a promotion. So receipts alone don't do enough if you don't use them as a confident way to explain them. So in today's episode, we're going to talk about the application of using your receipts when you need to get on the other side of those high stakes conversations. Being charismatic and having the sparkling personality is fantastic, but when you're in those high stakes conversations, I don't want you to just be the one that is smiling in all the right places that everybody likes. I want you to be the person that actually shows up with evidence that is going to back up everything that you're saying, all of the different ways that you are basically explaining your value and the impact that you've made for your organization. So you are not going to go back and you're not summarizing your whole career. And that is, just a little bit of a sidebar. When you're in these high impact conversations, you're not going all the way back to the beginning of your career and explaining all the things that have happened in your history. You are talking about those places where you basically were the player on the team that scored the game-winning touchdown, or you were the person in that project that made sure you got everyone across the goal line. These are those moments. And let me also say that if you're here watching this episode, you probably already have this moment in your mind, because you know that you've been doing good work. You know you have projects or things where you were the one that made it happen. And for one reason or another, you weren't recognized for it. Everyone kind of went on and gave someone else the accolades, gave someone else the promotion, gave someone else the bonus, and you were left heartbroken. I know this feeling. And all of what I'm teaching you right now is coming from that exact moment being a part of my own history. I can't tell you how many times I was very confused, where I put my heart, my blood, and my soul into some projects and led a really fabulous creative team that did the exact same, pouring all of their energy into some projects that were very high profile. But then someone else came in and gave the glory to someone else. In particular, the money, the bonuses, the big contracts that went along with that. It's just a lesson that I vowed to never have to repeat again. It was very hard. I have talked about this in previous episodes where it fuels me to be able to pull all of that humiliation, all of those hard lessons learned, to making sure that you don't make the same mistakes that I did. We're going to use two different examples. One that is pertinent to like my education history, and then another from the corporate space. So if you were in education and you are a person that is responsible for professional learning, where you are going to design and deliver training that gets everybody migrated over to a new platform. And then in the corporate example, we'll say that you are a corporate trainer, an L&D, learning and development expert, and you are responsible for the training for a company-wide software rollout. So it's two different roles, but we're going to use the same process and apply them so that you see how this works. What unlocks all of this is for you to keep one question central, one thing, one overarching question that is going to guide everything that you're doing with collecting and applying your receipts. And that simply is, what changed because of my work? What changed because I did this? And this moves you from a mindset of being just task oriented, where you're just completing random tasks or completing a list of tasks, to what is the impact of the work that you're doing? Who is going to benefit from whatever it is that you are a part of? And so many people will stop before they answer this question. We kind of just do the work. We keep our heads down. And remember, Gen X folks, that's how we were taught. That's how we were trained, was to just come in, do the work, not complain. And somebody somewhere is going to recognize how wonderful you are and how hard you're working. And they're going to bless you with a promotion one day. That's kind of the basic mindset that we've all come into the workforce with. But the thing about it is that that game changed a while ago. And your organization is looking at the numbers. They're looking at ways that they can measure the work that you're doing. So you have to start thinking that way as well. And you're just kind of, it doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to start depositing the details into certain buckets or pulling from certain buckets. When we're talking about the story of who you are and the impact that you've made, it's got to be details that your leadership can talk upward, that your leadership is able to repeat and understand what you're doing. You don't need to necessarily measure every single thing. One or two impact buckets that you're going to pull from is enough. So let's talk about what those buckets are. So you're going to start with one win, maybe two, but let's just start with one for the sake of this exercise. And you are going to think about what you've already done. Think about projects that are already completed. We're not looking forward. We're actually reflecting on what's already done. So think about a project you completed, a training you delivered, or a process that you may have redesigned that helped improve efficiency. So what are the things that you're going to highlight? Think about time that was saved or deadlines that were met. Think about money that you saved, or better yet, existing revenue that you were able to protect. Think about the quality or consistency that was improved because of your work. Also think about the people that were impacted as a result. If you were a part of a team that was responsible for delivering this training, if there are 300 people in the company and you were responsible for making sure that all of them were trained, well, then that's 300 people that were impacted because of your work. And the whole point is that you've got to be able to show what changed because of the work that you did, what changed because you were the person that was delivering that end result. So how do you talk about this? You basically want to be able to show change. Simple as that. I mean, because you were there, what changed? Because you were there, what improved? Because you were there, what was made better? How did the company benefit because you did this thing? And it can be very simple without going too deep into the numbers just yet. Think about what was the before picture and what was the after picture. And I'm thinking about like the weight loss photos when people, go on this fitness journey or whatever, and they show up 6 months later and they look different, but you can't quite put your finger on what's different. That's when the before and after pictures go well. You see them standing in front of a mirror, maybe looking not so great, and then 6 months later, they're toned, they're popping, they're beautiful, whatever, and you see the clear change and improvement that has happened over time. That's basically the picture that you're trying to paint for whomever this person or leadership in your organization, or even it might be a recruiter or a person that you're interviewing with for a new position. All of this is for you to be able to show, this is what was this was the before and this is the after, and you in between are the person that made that happen. Or you can also talk about what was the goal of the project, and if you exceeded that goal, you want to show what the actual outcome was. So maybe it was that you hit the goal, but you did it on a faster timeline. So you were able to beat the goal deadline by 2 weeks. Or you were able to, maybe you had $100,000 budget to deliver this particular project and you were able to get it done for 85,000. Well, that's going to show a major cost savings that the company is going to care about. Or even, think about all the times where something might have been just maybe not as glamorous, but I remember there were times in my organizations where we actually had reductions in the staff, but we were still expected to go on and produce the same work as a result of that. And I remember in one conversation, I had a team where it was 80 people. Think about this. There were 80 people that were doing this work. And we had a reduction in force, and that team was shrunk down to 25. And when my new leader came into the organization, and she kind of wanted to know, okay, tell me about your history. Tell me about your, well, I have been able to maintain the same standard of quality work with a huge drop in the personnel that's actually delivering it. And so that was me showing a negative change that had happened, but I was able to maintain the quality and the standards of the work that everybody was seeing. Our output didn't change, even though we had fewer people that were doing it. And me being able to articulate that in the moment was impressive. I mean, I'm talking about it now. I was the one that was there and I'm still impressed. But you get the point, is that the numbers and the details, the measurements, they matter with helping the other person really understand the full picture of what you're doing and how you're helping the organization move forward. So I want you to do a little bit of math. And, we're not talking about perfect decimals were to a tenth of a percent. How you have made a change, but maybe you just haven't taken the time to really write out what numbers matter, what the measurements are. So in the training example, let's say that you were able to get the whole organization trained. So let's say 300 people in the organization trained, but roughly about 50% is what you were expecting to be able to impact right away. But as a result of your work, you didn't get just 50% adopted. You actually got 57% adoption on this new platform, or people effectively using the new software by the expected time. And with the timeline, you were, instead of the 10 weeks that was allotted to get all the training done, you were able to get it done in 8 weeks. So that means going from 10 weeks originally expected down to 8 weeks. That is you reaching the goal 20% faster than originally anticipated. If the project, say for instance, you were given $100,000 budget to be able to carry this out, but with the people trained, with the resources that were used, you totaled out at $85,000. So not only did you get more people trained in a faster amount of time, you were also able to do it for 15% less than was originally anticipated. These are all numbers that your organization and your leadership is going to find impressive. This is what makes people stand up and pay attention when you're able to show up with these kinds of receipts. So let's put all of that together. All of these impact buckets that you're pulling from, in again, going back to our original template, because of my work, blank changed. How do you make this all fit now? Well, you could say, because of my work, training was completed 20% faster and 15% under budget. That's impactful. That is going to make people take notice. And this is how you are able to take all of that work you've already done just by going back and reflecting, opening up your calendar, looking at the people that were a part of the team, maybe paying attention to some of the smaller details that you might have glazed over because you're so focused, so busy doing the work that you're not thinking about what glory is going to come afterwards. You're just simply getting it done. But when you take a beat, to really take a breath and really go back and examine what it is that you did for the organization, you might see how really special your work and your presence has been for them. And you've got to think about it. Are these things that your leadership is going to value? With all of the different tasks that you take on, some that are truly assigned to you and some things that we take on because we think they look good, start thinking about how those tasks actually fit into the big picture of the goals that your company is trying to achieve. So if you're the one that's organizing all the birthday parties or the baby showers and everything, is that work actually valued? I mean, yeah, it might be some feel goods, but when it comes down to promotion considerations, or when it comes down to your quarterly bonus or your annual bonus, are these the things that anybody is going to say, oh, because she organized that baby shower, oh, she knocked those gifts out of the park, she deserves a promotion? No, honey, they ain't thinking that way. So with all of the different buckets that we've named, your leadership is going to care about those areas before anything else. Hopefully, by going through these little reflection exercises, you're able to understand that confident people are not necessarily louder. They are simply more clear with who they are and what they bring to the table. They are able to, again, they're able to come up with the receipts. I know I sound like a broken record by saying that, but it really is true. When you know your stuff, you show up a little bit differently. You're talking about these things with your whole chest. You are basically saying, hey, y'all are lucky to have me because this is what I did for you. And I don't want you to come in there all, Billy Badass and, get yourself kicked out. But I do want you to be able to walk in there truly understanding your value. That is the whole point of this. You basically, what changed because of the work that you did. You know what the impact was because you were there. And these are the different ways. These are the ways that you bring actual meat into the conversations when you're talking about why you deserve that promotion, when you are advocating for yourself for that quarterly or that annual bonus. You can carry this into interviews too. I mean, because all the people really want to know, they don't necessarily want to know your entire history. They don't want to know where you were born and, what your grandmother taught you. They want to know what you can do for them. Simple as that. And when you're able to show up, cut to the point, and let them know that because of the training that I did, I was able to completely redesign the onboarding process for my company, which meant new hires were able to go from a 6-week onboarding to a 4-week onboarding. That is going to sound really good to them. That's going to make them ask you more questions. Tell us more. How did you do that? Tell us a little bit about this is what the problem that we need solved. Can you tell us how you might apply this to that? These are the ways that you get them interested. You get them hooked. You get them wanting to know more about you and basically understand how valuable you are as a part of their team. So, like I've already been explaining, if you haven't looked at my Collect Your Receipts episode, the episode where we're basically talking about how you come into these high stakes conversations and start reframing the way you advocate for yourself. If you have not looked at that episode, please do so. But the other part that you need is my Collect Your Receipts guide. You can actually download it from the link in the description. And once you download that, it really is a lot of self-paced prompts. You actually are able to look at that and follow along in the episode so that you can fully understand how to apply this. So if you haven't done that, go to the link in the description and actually start writing out how you're going to now start to advocate for yourself when you come into these high stakes conversations. And remember, I just want you to pick one win, maybe two, but you're not going through and rewriting everything in your resume. You're not thinking about everything you've done over the last 20 years of work. You know what projects that you've been a part of. You know where you were the person that got everyone across the goal line. So come back with one or two of those examples, and you're going to think of the impact buckets that you're going to pull from. Think about the one sentence that you can start off with. Because of my work, this changed. Because of my work, this is how the organization benefited. And remember, you already have the experience. You are just learning how to talk about it with more confidence and show up with your whole chest to be able to advocate for yourself in those high stakes conversations. Remember, honey, I'm here to make you win. I am here to make sure that you understand your own hype and what you bring to the table. So if you benefited from this episode, if there was something that you learned and you think more of your friends need to know about it, please share this with them. I mean, the whole point is that we start understanding who we are, we understand our value, and we start coming into these conversations, understanding the game and able to really show up with the evidence of who we are and what we bring. So if you enjoyed this, like on the episode, make sure you subscribe because I got more goodies that I'm going to talk about in the next episode. All right. Thanks for stopping by, and I hope this helped.